Come on in, folks. If you can hear me, say something and we will begin. Right? We should begin. Don't you think? And have a beautiful start of the day. Make something nice of the morning. We should begin, folks. We shouldn't wait for the best part of our day to take it up. What do you think? Take your front seats. You're looking very pretty, all of you. You know, there's space out there in the front. And let us begin. Good morning. Yes, we can hear you, says Mr. Rajakumar. And Mr. Kumar, what he says, he gets. So, if he wants the show, he will get it. Right? So we should begin. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! But before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. That's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So we'll begin with a tribute to Mr. Robert Redford. Robert Redford, sir, he's no more. He passed away at 89. He is a deeply inspiring figure. A deeply inspiring figure, not just as an actor, not just as a director, a producer, but also as an entrepreneur, also as a movie patron, so to speak, cinema buff movie patron. So I'll tell you a bit about Mr. Robert Redford. He is the original golden boy of Hollywood, extremely good looking guy, extraordinarily good looking guy. So good looking that he actually lost movies because he was good looking. you know, Many of the roles that he wanted to do, he couldn't get them because he was just unreally good looking. He was just too beautiful. Never in your life do you miss out on opportunities because you're so good looking. So he was that person. One of that cases is that there's a movie called Graduate, The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman, 1967. Yeah. So that's one movie which was supposed to go to Mr. Robert Redford. So it was a Mike Nichols direction. It's the movie which has essentially, it's the cornerstone of American culture, right? Coming of age, that's Graduate. Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge India, it has scenes copied from Graduate. That's a disgrace, but let's not talk about it. But the point is that Graduate was supposed to go to Mr. Robert Redford because, that character was Mr. Robert Redford. But then Mike Nichols said, "Hey, have you ever been turned down by a girl?" You know, and Mr. Robert Redford was like, "What do you mean?" And Mr. Mike Nichols said, "At that moment, I knew he couldn't be, you know, the graduate star because this guy has never been turned down in his life. That's how good looking." And it's not just one movie that Mr. Robert Redford lost because of his extraordinary beauty. There's a lot more. But if you want to watch some good movies with Mr. Robert Redford, I have a list, of course. Huge movie buff. So everybody says Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Of course, that's great. Then there's The Way We Were, beautiful film. Then there was Ordinary People, which he directed. So he never got an Oscar for as an actor, unfortunately, right? Because the Golden Boy curse. But he was a very very big artist. So not just an actor, but an artist. He actually went deep into art, right? So he directed movies. One of the movies was Ordinary People, very good movie. It actually was the best movie of the year, which beat a very good movie at the time. Then, Indecent Proposal with Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, great movie, beautiful movie. Indecent Proposal. Then, you know, Spy Game. So Mr. Brad Pitt, he's essentially been idolizing and copying Mr. Robert Redford. So he's Robert Redford of the next generation, right? So Spy Game is a good movie. Then All Is Lost. I remember it was a great movie, but his last movie was Old Man and a Gun. So if you want to pay a tribute to his life and his career, you can watch all Old Man and a Gun, right? Beautiful film, his last film, and he was like, "I retire after this," and it was just a very very good art movie. Then there was also a film called Our Souls at Night. Now, Our Souls at Night is a slow burn, beautiful film, extraordinary movie. It made me cry. And that movie has talks about two very old people who decide to sleep together. Not sleep together. I mean, not sex, right? But just sleeping together. So the woman comes and says, "I feel very lonely, because I'm so old." And so she comes to Robert Redford, "Sir," and she says, "Can we just sleep together?" And that, they build on a very good relationship. And then they get, they move away because their children essentially move them apart. But beautiful film. So, uh, rest in peace, the Sundance Kid. Just extraordinary work, extraordinary life. And then he founded the Sundance Film Festival, which essentially became the hotbed of independent movies. So he's called the godfather of indie cinema because Sundance Film Festival has been like the patron of indie films of the world, right? So Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's first movie, it debuted at Sundance, and so on. So Sundance has been the platform for indie movies. So that became an entrepreneur. So he's not just an actor, not just a pretty blue-eyed blonde guy. A very dedicated actor, a very dedicated movie connoisseur, a movie student of cinema, and then an entrepreneur, then an activist. Great guy, great life, 89 years, full life. Very thankful to his work. So glad I've experienced it. You can do as well. So go on, watch Robert Redford films. Indecent Proposal, uh, Old Man and the Gun, the last movie, Our Souls at Night, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Spy Game if you like Brad Pitt, uh, Ordinary People if you're into art, The Way We Were if you are a huge fan of, uh, you know, Rocket Sun. I guess it was with Rocket Sun, or was it The Sting with Paul Newman? Great stuff. So moving on. Uh, so this would be a very nice news for the viewers of Thinkers Frequency. The deal with TikTok is done. So there are reports that the deal with TikTok, US and TikTok operations. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency, and remember we talked a lot about this, that US didn't want to ban or kill TikTok like India killed TikTok in India. India killed TikTok, right, in the home market. US didn't want to ban or kill TikTok. Why? Because TikTok became a very big economic entity. It was a very successful business. It had a lot with going on with the American youth. It had got like grappled American youth perfectly. So there was no competition to TikTok. It had left Instagram, even Instagram behind, right? So it was a very big economic entity, but it was also like a hedge against the monopoly of Meta in the social networking space. So there's Meta, there's Google, right? These two people hold everything, all the cards as far as internet is considered, right? Then there's Twitter, which is new, which is not totally lefty, and this with Mr. Trump's great following and everything, it could be a hedge against the forces to be the powerful forces, right? And that's what has happened. Mr. Larry Ellison has taken it over. Mr. Larry Ellison with uh, Silverwalk, I guess, right? And Andreessen Horowitz. These people have taken over. 20% is still with China, 80% is with US. It'll be run as a separate business, separated from TikTok in China. So US will have control. TikTok was also seen as a social engineering tool by China, that they could just control Americans' minds, right? By tweaking the TikTok algorithm, people accused that TikTok in China had a lot of good stuff. Like the videos which went viral in China were the inventive videos, like inventions and science and business and all of those educational stuff, inspiring stuff. But TikTok in US was just cringe, absolutely brain frying material. So that was also an acquisition, which might change. Speaking of brain control, mind control, there's a very good book in this regard which you could read. It's called, or which you could just, try reading. It's not an easy read. It's called A Brave New World. Brave New World by Mr. Aldous Huxley. So there were two dystopian visions for the future. One was the 1984, right? George Orwell vision, where the government has an overarching control, where it's actually controlling people, thought police. They're controlling what you say. They're policing based on what you say. You can be jailed, so people are not saying anything. That was the dystopian vision of 1984, George Orwell, where people would be like controlled, literally controlled in terms of what they can think, what they can say, and so on and so forth. That was George Orwell 1984. The alternate dystopian vision for the future was Mr. Aldous Huxley, when the government didn't need to do that, when the government would have tools which essentially programmed everybody's brains, right? So they would be fed information in a way that they don't need to be controlled, because their brains would be fried in that way. Now, that is the vision of Brave New World, and that is the vision which has come to light now, right? With the advent of social networking, with the ubiquity of social networking. So, that's something that you can explore as a reading if you're interested. Very, very deep stuff, interesting stuff, very hard read though. Because that language of that era is not, especially 1984, it'll make you sleep. Brave New World, much better. Moving on. So Ford is cutting 1,000 jobs at the German plant. So that's going on. A lot of stress as far as automotive sector is considered in Europe and in US. Not easy. So Ford Motor, it would cut up to 1,000 jobs at its electric auto plant in Germany due to lower than expected demand for battery powered cars. So globally, the demand for EVs is stagnating, right? Which is leading to real problems as far as the whole forecast is considered, because people thought that after a point, it's just gonna be EVs, right? And that hasn't turned out to be the case. Speaking of Ford, Tesla is getting, probed for some problems as far as its doors are considered. Also, Mr. Musk has said that whatever you're facing as far as this place considered, the cars, this is nothing as compared to what's gonna come in Tesla's journey. Nowhere in the history of business and technology has a trend so profound happened. There is no analogy, there is no comparison to what's gonna happen with Tesla, right? There is no limiting factor to what the company will be doing as far as earnings are considered. So he says that when Tesla becomes a robo taxi company, right? When it becomes Tesla is coming out with its self-driving robot taxi play, right? Where you could order the car and it'll actually come to your place and it'll drive you and it can become a cab, right? So he says that nowhere in the history of the product uh, has one product seen an upgrade which multiplies the amount of work the car can do or the product can do. So he says that you need to thank me later because he bought the Tesla stock, right? So if you remember, he wrote a tweet a couple of days ago or maybe a few days ago. He says you'll thank me later, right? And then he ended up buying like $1 billion worth of Tesla stock. The stock went up 10%. So he says that whatever happens with Tesla will be a story to be told like no story before. Moving on. So Tesla is looking at a $20 trillion play. Speaking of US, Mr. Musk, Mr. Trump has talked to Mr. Modi, and as predicted at Thinkers Frequency, nobody, by the way, nobody, no commentator, media or social media told you that Mr. Trump was back on the table, if you remember. It was me. I said the first line where he said, India has offered to zero its tariffs, but it's getting late. Everybody read it as a usual Trump ramble, but I told you that this is the guy who's back on the table. So once again, great bonhomie displayed. He called Mr. Modi on his birthday, and he was talking about these bilateral trade agreements to happen very soon, early conclusion, and so on and so forth. So something happening in that regard. He's also shifted all of his rhetorical power on China once again. He's talking about Europe, how it needs to stop buying from Russia. He's talking about China, how it needs to stop buying from Russia and Europe. He's talking to G7, to NATO, to EU to stop, to tariff China. Now they're not gonna do that, but he's been shifting his focus, or let's say his verbal assaults from India to China, which is great news for the country, right? And soon we should have something. Speaking of US, today, Wednesday is gonna be the day when the Fed announces its rate cut, which is gonna be a big news for what's gonna happen. So people are expecting like a 0.25% as far as rate cuts are considered. So Fed is gonna cut rates by 0.25%, which is gonna be great, which is gonna lead to a lot of activity in the US markets, and usually it'll be leading to much more economic activity, because a rate cut, what it gets, it's cheaper borrowing, more activity in small businesses, more hiring, more consumption, more economic activity, and so on. So US job data wasn't that great, even though US inflation was in control. And that's why Mr. Trump was abusing Mr. Powell, saying that he is a stupid moron. He is a slow guy. He gave him a nickname called Too Late Powell. He said that he needs to quickly reduce rates because we can grow now that US inflation is low. At that moment, it was 2.1%. Mr. Powell said that, I'm going to look at it non-politically, but eventually he came around. So this is what's going to happen. Moving on. China to focus on services sector to aid consumption. Measures to stimulate domestic demand by promoting the consumption of services such as sports and entertainment. Latest attempt to help the economy grappling with slower growth. Now, a lot of this is much ado about nothing, because China at $17 trillion is still growing at 5%, which is not really slower growth, right? So a lot of negative news about China that we read or we get to read, it's not really negative, right? So if you would have listened to Paul Krugman in 2004, the Nobel laureate, he was predicting a crash of China from 2004. That guy, you know. So, but Chinese economy is pretty solid. They're still making $1 trillion from exports. They have an export surplus. Uh, their consumption, domestic demand is just 30 to 40% of the total economy, as compared to, let's say, 60-70% of US and India. So, Chinese economy, unfortunately, is pretty robust. Moving on. There's an interview of Mr. Rene Haas, who's leading ARM. ARM is a design company essentially, which is now also getting into something like a chip play, but it's more towards designing and software of chips, right? It's a SoftBank company now. SoftBank is the majority stakeholder in ARM, and ARM is coming to India. It's looking at hiring in India, setting up in India. It's already in India, but you know, in a way, it's a UK based company, but it's looking at India. ARM eyes tie up with India to widen AI tech reach, and he's talking about how India can essentially be a force. It's just a usual interview. I read it, so you don't have to. Moving on. Wait for Wi-Fi 6 gets longer over spectrum licensing issues. So 6G, uh, you know, it's it's a bit of a hassle, because 6G, even though it's very important, you know, its notification has been delayed, holding back the tech that supports faster internet speed. Because why do you think they're delaying it? Because we just got like the 5G thing, right? And the penetration for 5G is still not as tight. And because it's not as tight, I mean, it has room to grow. A quick implementation of 6G could overload, or let's say could strain the telcos, because they have to buy the licenses and, you know, spectrums, right? So that's gonna, it can wait a little, and that's what's happening. DOT delays notification on 6G rules, holding back tech that supports faster internet. No signs of tariff distress. US retail sales in August rise. So uh, that was expected. A lot of people were saying that, you know, US economy is in trouble, but US has been doing, and US tariffs are gonna kill the economy. So that's what these people were saying, that tariffs are the wrong thing to do. But regular viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we've been talking about this for over 100 years. I'm sorry, 100 episodes, right? We said that the tariffs are gonna work out better than these people think, right? Do you remember that? We talked a lot about it, and that's exactly what's happening. No strains. Even inflation hasn't gone up. Energy prices are low, which has kept inflation in check. Uh, uh, a lot of companies are essentially investing a lot in US. So a lot of companies which were looking at establishing plants elsewhere, they've started manufacturing in US, or have announced manufacturing in US. Tariff on pharma has led pharmaceutical companies to invest like $125 billion over the next 5 years. So a lot of money, tech companies, Apple included, spending a lot of money in US. When all of these capex happens, you know what happens. We've talked a lot about this. Moving on. Banks may offer bigger loans to mega companies. Government is in talks with RBI to ease regulation, take larger exposures on big corporates for infrastructure finance. So right now, a company, an infra company taking a loan of over 10,000 crores, the bank needs to have some sort of provisioning norms. The provision extra 3% needs to be set aside, and so on and so forth. So what the government is trying to do is it's trying to ease that norm for mega companies taking loans as far as infrastructure play is considered. They want to ease the loan play without leading to concentration of risk issues, right? So they're saying one thing that you can do is reconsider the 10,000 crore limit to large infrastructure organizations, because you know why they're doing that, right? You know why the government wants a lot of pull as far as the whole infrastructure ground of the country is considered. They really want this thing to thrive. We've talked about how housing, mid-level economic semi-premium affordable housing has a lot of scope in the country, and a lot of homes to be built. That needs to speed up, which is why the government is looking at these reforms, so to speak. PepsiCo chief meets PM during India tour. So a lot of people were concerned that the revised GST of 40% will actually hurt the soft drinks industry. However, soft drinks industry already has that because it's 20%, 28% GST and the rest in cess, right? So more or less it's net neutral. This answers a question which Mr. Tiwari asked, or I don't know if it was Mr. Tiwari, but somebody said that wouldn't the rise in taxes for soft drinks hurt uh, private investment in the consumption domain? And I said it's not gonna be such because, first of all, soft drinks are not a proxy for the Indian FMCG consumption story. However, secondly, the tariffs are not really changed per se because counting the cess, it's basically net neutral, which gets confirmed now. Moving on. Urban companies, Mr. Abhiraj Bal has said something nice. So what he said is that 100x subscription of an IPO is not a victory lap. It's essentially a deep responsibility, which is the right thing to say. So well done. He says that since there's so much of trust of people in the country on our public listing, it makes us even more responsible because 100x is like huge, right? It's probably unprecedented, perhaps unprecedented, at least for startups. Moving on, India needs sufficient surge capacity as wars are sudden and unpredictable, says Mr. Rajnath Singh. So he says, we're talking about a Sudarshan Chakra roadmap. Sudarshan Chakra is basically civilian and army, military security as far as the whole, what do you say, emergency response system is considered. So he's saying exactly what we've been predicting, right? So his lines are very comforting because he says that India needs sufficient surge capacity as far as wars are considered. Surge capacity, that means more capex. More capex means more ordering of new equipment, more spend on defense design, manufacturing, upskilling is considered, right? Now, all of that needs money, right? And all of that money will go into defense companies, which means those defense companies will benefit. So we are expecting in February when the budget comes, they're going to raise the defense spend as a percentage of GDP from 1.9 to 2.2 to 2.5%. Whatever they do, it's going to lead to very good outcomes for India. Because defense manufacturing sets everything. India needs its own military industrial complex, right? Speaking of defense, Brazil eyeing strategic thrust with India, visits of NSA and VP. South American nation keen to play a keen role in India's defense supply chain as a reliable partner. So we've talked about this. Brazil's defense firms are expanding their presence in India, keen to play a role in Indian defense supply chain as a reliable partner. Taurus and CBC are doing the work. Moving on. US has rejected India's request for WTO consultation on 50% copper. So when India was getting, India got tariffed for steel, right? So US started talking about making its own steel. So it put a 50% tariff on steel, especially coming from India. 50% of tariff on steel, duties on steel meant a lot of problems for India. And why? We know why, right? We've talked about the arsenal of democracy, which Mr. Peter Navarro recently referred to. No respect to him, so just Peter for him. But anyway, so India, what it did was it went to WTO because that's what you do. And USA said that you can't go to WTO. We reject this because this is a national security concern. So WTO cannot do anything. And that's exactly what's happening as far as copper exports are also considered. Because uh, copper and steel, they've become very, very important for US because of the whole uh, semiconductor manufacturing and defense manufacturing for US, right? So they've become very important. So they're really looking at renewing their steel, renewing their core manufacturing, US, and it's going to lead to a very good outcome. So as a part of the Make America Great Again plan, what they wanted to do was get pharma in US, and then get steel in US, and then get copper in US, the whole semiconductor manufacturing in US, so that by the end of 2028, Trump has something to show for, right? As far as the whole Make America Great Again plan was planned. So, moving on. Real-time labor market info system in the works. So the government is actually looking at a platform which combines data from a lot of databases. So they want to integrate databases uh, from many industries, mapping jobs and skills. This is very interesting because we were working on a product for the government in this regard. I was actually consulting a company called Hands On, which mapped skills, which mapped people basis on skills. So we pitched it to the government, and we said that the government could actually map skills geographically. They're already mapping it demographically or category wise, but they could map those skills geographically because it becomes a very good tool for policy making. So that's happening. A comprehensive database on India's labor and their skill sets being developed. Several ministries may come together to pool data, analyze trends, will bridge the talent gap, tweak policies, and rework curricula. Idea is to be future ready with workforce, domestic and global needs, and so on. So that's obviously a good plan on paper. It's implementation which falters because these people get whoever they get to make these platforms, and these platforms then don't work, right? And they're back to using the shitty technologies that they use. But let's move on. So India signs an MOU with ILO on job classification. That's normal. Transshipment giant PSA is eyeing an expansion. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know that what comes next after you've developed roads and logistics, right? Basically transportation. What is the next step? What is the next step to development of transportation and logistics? Do you remember? We've talked a lot about this. So please say, what happens next? What's the next step to transportation and logistics development is considered? What do you think is the next step? Warehousing and yes, warehousing. So, Mr. Singh, you're so right. And that's exactly what PSA is talking about. So, PSA is looking at container handling and warehousing, railway and inland nodes, focusing on complete solution, 4x growth in domestic port supply, container handling may double by 2040. Nobody's seen 2040, but PSA is a very big giant, and they're looking at expanding their presence in the Indian warehousing play. Yeah, we have the largest terminal in Mumbai. We may want to partner with someone who has extensive inland nodes to create a complete solution. Plans to expand its presence in India and warehousing, besides forming partnerships for inland containing. So we've talked a lot about this, and this is exactly what is happening. So when it comes to development, the road has the answers to everything, right? The road has the answers to everything. If the road is working, the next step will be warehouses. If warehouses are working, the next step will be retail. If retail is working, the next step will be spending in jobs. If jobs are working, if roads are working, the manufacturing units are going to be working because they'll be comfortable in sending their stuff. So the roads have the answer to everything. And once you get the transportation right, warehousing comes next. India is especially weak in the warehousing play. because as far as our uh, warehouses per containers per 1,000 people are that index, we are very low. We are like 1/10 of China, so we have a lot of room to grow, and this is a step in that direction. Land data to be digitized with ownership rights. As of now, 99.1% land data is digitized, right? And it's gonna grow more. So 99.8% of the available rural land records have been digitized, barring northeast states and Ladakh. So they want to go 100%. We've discussed about this. IEX has challenged CERC order on market coupling. So people who don't know about IEX, it's India Energy Exchange. It's basically, you know, a bourse for energy trading, right? Electricity trading. Now IEX is like 99% of Indian market. Then there is also HPX, or there are two more people who are basically less than 1%. So let me figure that out for you. Yeah, it's Hindustan Power Exchange Limited and Power Exchange India Limited. Okay, so they are less than 1%. 99 point some percent is IEX. What CERC said that was that we are going to bring market coupling into play. What market coupling means is that there's going to be central market making. So you go to the portal, or exchange, the prices have to be coupled, so that if you're trading on IEX, the same price will be displayed now on HPX as well. That's basically market coupling. That IEX, right now it's the de facto player. It's like a 99% shareholder. Ruler of the market. However, whatever 1%, these people don't have that market depth, right? Now with market coupling, their prices will automatically be, at par. So people will have less incentives to go to IEX, because they could go to HPX and that will be fine, or Par Exchange and that will be fine. So when that ruling was decided, there was like a 30% crash of IEX stock, which was already low. So IEX stock is poison. But what happened was that IEX has challenged that ruling. So they are contesting it. They're saying that this is a market that has developed over 17 years, and this is disruption for the sake of it. It's not going to help, and it's also going to be, it's arbitrary and unfair. So that's what their case is. Now the CERC says that this is what happens with Europe, this is what happens with developed markets, so we want to do that. In the meanwhile, you know who's going to make money, right? Who's going to make money? Retail chains told to display GST discounts. This is once again in the direction of making sure that there is no profiteering, wrong profiteering on the side of FMCG companies. So retail stores are actually talking about, they've been instructed to. So ministries have been saying that we're going to make sure that whatever GST benefits we've passed on to the companies, they are indeed passed on to people, right? So that's a very big priority. What if companies get this GST benefit and then they just keep the price intact, right? And then they end up making more net margins. That's not something that the government wants. The government wants heavy consumption, right? Because that's going to solve everything. The answer to that was lawyers, of course. Who makes money while that is litigated? Lawyers. But lawyers make money. Moving on. Strategic reserves needed across crude value chain, says Nayara chief. Fortify supply lines as geopolitical shocks may last 15 years, says Mr. Prasad Panicker. His name is Prasad Panicker, but it's written Panicecker. So it could be read as Panicker. The guy panics. I'm really sorry for this very, very poor joke, but you gotta try. It's just instantly came to me, man. Prasad Panicker. Mr. Prasad Panicker says that strategic reserves are necessary for India. Strategic reserves are necessary because it's not just crude imports and crude refining that's important. It's also reserves, because you don't know where geopolitics takes you in times to come, because there could be something which could last like a month, a week, a month, a year, or 3 years, or 5 years, right? You've got to have a reserve. Now, an angle to that is that maybe Nayara, which is a Rosneft and Reliance company, because it's struggling so much, it's looking at some sort of inlet or outlet there, right? Because if India creates a reserve, it creates an opportunity for Nayara. So that could be a sell, indirect sell. 87% of crude oil and 50% gas needs met through imports, he says, which is right. 270 million tons refining capacity, but many chemicals, catalysts still imported. So he says a lot of catalysts and chemicals are still imported, and you need reserves of those. You cannot depend on imports of these particular catalysts or, chemicals. So 20 million tons is Nayara's Gujarat refining capacity. Moving on. JSW Neo is the front runner to acquire Statkraft's HP hydropower unit. JSW is really firing on all cylinders. So JSW Neo is looking at acquiring Statkraft's Himachal Pradesh hydropower unit, while JSW International is looking at acquiring ThyssenKrupp's steel plant. Right? So they are basically looking at acquiring ThyssenKrupp's steel plant in Germany. They said it's going to lead to upgradation. So Germany's plant is looking at some sort of upgradation, and JSW say we could do it and we could acquire you. And JSW is also getting into cars, right? So JSW Cars is going to launch in India. Right now they're in partnership with MG Hector, but that's not going to stay on forever. They said we are going to be independent, and they're going to have outside inputs, but that's going to be an input. They are going to literally make their own cars. So JSW is really firing in all cylinders. It has its steel manufacturing in Ohio and so on and so forth. The deal at enterprise value at 12 to 1400 crore, likely to be inked soon. Torrent and Serentica have also bid, but JSW moving forward. Steel offers to buy at ThyssenKrupp's metal business, commits 2 billion euros. That's 2 billion euros. It's 20,000 crores for acquiring German's DRI project, right? Set up an additional capacity via electric arc furnace. So ThyssenKrupp plans to be net zero in terms of carbon emissions, and JSW could help them. ThyssenKrupp's metal business. Moving on. Gold crosses 1.1 lakhs. Jewelers expect demand problems, right? Well, that's no surprise, especially to the viewers of Thinkers Frequency. We've been talking about gold. 25% of gold purchases are happening from reserve banks of the country. So reserve banks of the country are really stocking in on gold, which means everybody is looking at some sort of problems with dollar and geopolitical instability in general, or financial instability in general. That's why all reserve banks are loading on gold. Gold has become the effective currency as far as store of value is concerned. So there's currency which is exchange, for exchange, and then there's currency which is storing value, and gold has become that de facto store of value for reserve banks across the board, and that's why the prices have gone up. Jewelers expect that this is going to hurt the demand for gold, but in value terms it might just go up, right? Because it's more expensive, so less people will buy it, but at the end of the day the value will be high. Moving on. There's some news as far as IPL is considered, which I'm not interested in. But Unilever has a very interesting pitch for India. So Unilever has an ice cream business. So you know Unilever, HUL. HUL is Indian arm of Unilever. Unilever is a Dutch FMCG giant. Now they bought ice cream companies. They bought Ben and Jerry's, which we've talked about. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember Ben and Jerry's, the book One Scoop at a Time. Beautiful book, biography of Ben and Jerry's. One of the best biographies that you can read. So Ben and Jerry's got acquired by Unilever. Unilever also acquired Magnum. In India, and also quality walls. So Unilever wants this ice cream business to have a festive play. What they say is, so I'll read it, what the chief says, that Ramadan is an ice cream moment. Ramadan didn't used to be an ice cream play, but this Ramadan was not an ice cream moment 15 years ago. Now it is in all Muslim countries an ice cream peak period. Okay, so he says Ramadan is an ice cream moment, Christmas is an ice cream moment, 4th of July is an ice cream moment, Easter is an ice cream moment, but Diwali in India is not an ice cream moment yet. So they're talking about Magnum, Quality Walls, and their Cornetto entering into the festive play in a way, which is an interesting pitch. Thankfully, Indian sweets and mithais have been very robust as far as this market competition is considered. A lot of market competition happened from chocolates, Mondelez, Ferrero Rocher. These people have really taken a leap. So a lot of gifting of uh, sweets happens in form of these chocolates, but Indian sweets have held on. So let's see how they manage this particular challenge. Right, this is another challenge that's coming. Moving on, OTT users increased to 600 million, 601 million. Paid subscription hits 148 million, and this includes the bundled users of OTT, which comes from the telecom. So Airtel, Reliance, they also bundle OTTs, right, with their packs. This includes that. So increased to 600 million with 148 million active paid subscription, including those through telecom bundles. A lot is happening as far as home OTT market is considered. OTT market is just growing, by the way, at 10% year on year now, down from 13 to 14%. That signals some maturity happening in the OTT play, right? It's not a hyper growth machine anymore, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. It's a recent phenomenon. The industry is 10 years old, and it's already showing signs of maturity in India. Woo! Moving on. Fear at new low on Dalal Street. Is the worst of declines over? So Dalal Street has its VIX down at basically the most low it's ever been, the lowest it's ever been. So market fear gauge, India's VIX dipped to new low on Tuesday, signaling traders don't expect more sharp swings. VIX, which made a lifetime low of 10.12 levels on Friday, closed at 10.27. Lifetime low and 10.27 on Tuesday. VIX is basically volatility index, and how they measure this volatility index is by measuring calls and puts placed into the future, right? So that determines how wild the swing is going to be in nutshell, and that's very low, which means less volatility is expected from the market. But they say that it could also be like a calm before something wrong. But these people always say that. This has also led to one of the worst commentaries that I've personally heard. One of the worst, like incredibly, dull commentary I've heard. So I'll read it for you. Just laugh. A very good laugh. Okay. So this guy says, over the past 4 weeks, markets have largely discounted both positive and negative news, reflecting a sense of fatigue among participants due to persistent news flow and ongoing uncertainty, reducing the fear in the market, says Mr. Shyam Chandak, head of institutional equities at Helios. Now that has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard, man. कि लोग ना थक गए हैं, इतनी न्यूज़ है आजकल, इतना कुछ चल रहा है जीवन में कि लोग बेचारे नंब हो गए हैं, वो थक गए हैं न्यूज़ सुन सुन के, तो अब वो शांति चाहते हैं, तो अब मार्केट शांत हो गया है, वॉलेटिलिटी इंडेक्स लो हो गया क्योंकि इतनी न्यूज़ है, इतना शोर शराबा है जीवन में, थक गए हैं हम. That's his reading of the situation. Amazing. It's just next level, right? What do you think? And I'm like, this is one guy I'll always listen to in future. because he has an interesting take of things. And ये जो थक गए हैं लोग, this news, ये एक ही महीने से हो रहा है. इससे पहले इतनी न्यूज़ नहीं थी, राइट? इससे पहले न्यूज़ थोड़ी कम आती थी, शोर थोड़ा कम था. पिछले एक महीने में शोर इतना हो गया है कि सब थक गए. That's what he's saying. It's amazing, man. Amazing. India Inc. turned to non-bank routes for nearly half of FY25 funding. So that we've discussed about this. The bond play. Indians have been raising a lot of bonds, and first half, nearly half of FY25. Total flow to corporates up at 3% and 35 lakh crore. So, corporate India increasingly tapping non-banking channels to meet its funding requirements, with nearly half of the total resources raised in FY20 coming from equity markets, bond and loans through NBFCs, non-banking financials. So that is expected. India, we've talked about why this is happening, why this has happened, because India Inc. is sitting on a lot of liquidity. A lot of liquidity enables it to get money at very favorable terms in the form of bonds. Also, there's a lot of IPO action happening, a lot of secondary transactions, a lot of primary capital infusion through equity markets, right? Indian equities are hot, Indian IPOs are super hot. So that's what's leading to non-banking routes for FY25 funding. Moving on. Government orders cyber audit for Crypto Inc. So they're talking about keys essentially getting tracked as far as crypto transactions are here. So mandating cybersecurity audit is a step in the right direction to strengthen safeguards for users. The key question is, however, whether the cybersecurity auditors examining systems of banks and brokerages are equipped to spot security gaps in crypto play. Crypto is especially hard to monitor, right? So even right now, in hiding movement of stolen cryptos, cyber hackers across markets often resort to mirrored transactions. They may park a chunk of the digital booty in accounts spread across various darknet markets and exchanges with low reporting requirements. Many scammers convert their robbed VDAs, like bitcoins, into privacy enhancing coins to preserve anonymity and reduce traceability. So VDAs is basically virtual digital asset. So a lot of complications in this market. However, the government is ordering cyber audits for all exchanges at least, right? Moving on. Adani the group is looking at 30,000 crores in port business. This is up from 11 to 12,000 crores, which they were earlier expecting. So they're doubling it, right? Adani Ports spend about 30,000 in the next 2 years to expand its domestic operations. This is more than double the 12,000 crore investment that the company has guided in this fiscal year. So it's amazing. It's amazing. We got to thank Adani Group for all the capex that they do, right? Private capex has been a big problem for India, but thanks to Adani Group, we've done enough, right? We've not done enough, but we've done something. So if you look at private capex, where it's going, right? The power sector, that doesn't lead to a lot of action, a lot of second order effects or third order effects. But ports, this is great news, right? Moving on. The chief of MD and head Meta India says India powers Meta's $10 billion business messaging business. That's no surprise. India is Meta's biggest market. WhatsApp is also a revenue generating play. Meta is India's key growth engine for its $10 billion global messaging play. WhatsApp alone, paid messaging alone, clocking $1 billion revenue run rate. It's a shame that we have to, we could have had some players in India as well, but nobody. Moving on. Satcom spectrum recommendations have been sent back to TRAI. A lot of action happening with Satcoms and DOT and telcos, right? We've talked a lot about this. Satcoms is one of the industry which is gonna go 10x in the next couple of years, or let's say next 5 years. It's just gonna grow very, very fast. Moving on. India to develop full semiconductor stack starting with 25 chipsets, says Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav. Ashwini Vaishnav sir saying that semiconductor mission second phase to focus on equipment and materials to make sector sustainable. We've talked a lot about this. They've been talking to chemical industries like Merck to supply ultra refined, ultra pure chemicals used in the semiconductor play. And then a lot of design players like Tokyo Electron. Then there was ASMC's head in India. So a lot of design action. You're talking to ARM, right? A lot of action happening as far as ISM 2.0 play. Now ISM 1.0, India Semiconductor Mission 1.0, got investments of about $18 billion. That's like 1.7 lakh crores. And ISM 2.0 is looking at tripling or quadrupling that expense. So we might just be looking at spending over $30-40 billion on semiconductors. Is it late? Yes. But is it little? No. So it's definitely late, but not little. India is trying real hard. Second phase to focus on equipment materials alongside fabs and ATMP to make ecosystems sustainable in the long run. So a lot of second order, third order effects are going to happen. Speaking of second and third order effects, two-wheeler market, the premium guys, they are saying that reduction or let's say increase of our duties is not really going to lead to problems. So 350cc plus bikes, they have duties, right? They didn't get any reduction as far as GST is considered. So they're saying it's not going to lead to any problems because our 10 lakh plus bikes, they are pretty immune to these kind of shocks. Our customers don't look at saving money like that. Also, we're going to look at second and third order effects of the GST play, which is going to help the industry by leaps and bounds. Speaking of industry, which looks like it's in trouble perpetually for now, IT contracts worth $13 billion are up for renewal in coming quarters. Mega opportunity. $13 billion worth contracts up for renewal. What happens if these renewals go south? What happens if these renewals go south, which is a probability, which is not a possibility, it's a probability, right? What happens if IT contracts renewal becomes a problem? It's going to be a very, very big problem for the country, not just IT, but for the country itself. No tax cut, but luxury goods companies hopeful of indirect gains. My spiel of second order effects, which I keep talking about. Second and third order benefits are what the economy will see, says Mr. Ajoy Chawla, Chief Executive of Titan Company's Consumer Jewelry Division. So that's what's happening. Pneumoslide is a drug which is gonna come with a label warning, right? The Apex Indian Drug Regulator has conveyed a decision to state level agencies. So 12 years old and so on and so forth. This is what's happening in the world today. A lot of action, surprising action, right? TikTok, we didn't see coming. We knew it's gonna happen, but so quickly, well, it's surprise. The rate cut is gonna happen today. There's a lot of action happening on all fronts. India-US deal is gonna happen. So the tariff agreement, that might change situation. Indian defense spend looking up. Indian defense stocks looking up. Indian banking starting to look green. Indian IT not so much. On 18th, tomorrow is when Urban Company's IPO comes on. A very interesting play there as well. A lot of action in all directions. A very interesting time to look into the future. And with that, we come to the end of the 115th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun. This was a heavy day, don't you think? But it was a lot of fun. I hope you liked it. I hope it added value to you. I certainly learned a lot because of you, because I had to read all of this. I need to thank Mr. Raju Kumar. Mr. Kumar, thank you so much for all this labeling of episodes and being a dear viewer. Mr. Yogin Pratap Singh, Mr. Tiwari, as always, and everybody else who joined. I wish you a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Please take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.